Hello, and welcome back to the A-Level English Guide. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use language change theories effectively in Paper 3, using a real Cambridge-style question and historically accurate examples. We'll start by clarifying what examiners are actually looking for, then I'll walk you through key language change theories, explain each one clearly, and show you model analytical paragraphs that demonstrate how theory, textual evidence, and historical context work together in a high-level response. Before we begin, please remember to like, subscribe, and share this video. It really helps the channel reach other A-level students preparing for this exam. Let's start with Michael Halliday. Michael Halliday's functional theory argues that language changes because the functions it performs in society change. Language adapts as speakers need it to inform, evaluate, persuade, or comment on social experience in new ways. As social contexts evolve, linguistic meanings also evolve. In the model paragraph on screen, Halliday's theory is used to explain semantic change in early modern English. The phrase, "we hawe cold doings," shows that language in 1608 often performed an evaluative function rather than simply describing events. The noun doings frames the freezing of the Thames as socially disruptive, not merely cold. Supporting evidence from Text B shows that doings in early modern English frequently collocated with morally charged adjectives, indicating a broader evaluative meaning than today. Over time, as English increasingly prioritised factual clarity and efficiency, such metaphorically dense expressions became less common. This supports Halliday's view that semantic change is driven by changing social needs. The key takeaway here is this: Halliday is strongest when analysing meaning, metaphor, and discourse purpose. Always ask what the language is doing, not just what it means. Next, we move on to cultural transmission. Cultural transmission explains language change as a social process, where linguistic forms are learned and passed on between generations. Small preferences accumulate over time, leading to gradual grammatical change. In the model paragraph, this theory is applied to the changing pronoun system. Text A shows a transitional stage in early modern English, where thee, thou, and you coexist. As younger speakers increasingly favoured you for both singular and plural reference due to its neutrality and politeness, older forms gradually fell out of use. This change did not happen through deliberate reform, but through repeated generational preference. This is a textbook example of cultural transmission at work. The key takeaway here is that cultural transmission is ideal for pronouns, grammar, and simplification, and it explains slow change, not sudden replacement. Now let's look at substratum theory, which students often struggle with, but which is explicitly mentioned in the syllabus. Substratum theory explains language change through long-term contact between languages, where influence from a socially subordinate language persists even after political dominance fades. In the model paragraph, substratum influence is used carefully and accurately. The term citizen in text A derives from Old French and entered English following the Norman conquest of 1066. Although the text was written centuries later, the continued use of such lexis demonstrates how earlier language contact left a lasting imprint on English vocabulary. This shows that language change driven by historical contact can persist over long periods, particularly in institutional and urban discourse. The key takeaway is that substratum theory is best used for lexical influence, and claims must always be cautious, specific, and historically grounded. Next, we turn to Aitchison. Aitchison argues that language change is natural and inevitable, rejecting the idea that change represents decay or decline. She challenges prescriptivist attitudes and reframes change as adaptation. In the model paragraph, This theory is applied to syntax. Text A contains extended, multi-clause sentence structures, for example, that which makes you cry out in London, and to make newer and larger walkies. While such syntax may appear excessive to modern readers, it was entirely conventional in early modern English. Over time, English shifted towards shorter, more segmented sentences as written texts increasingly targeted broader audiences. This supports Aitchison's view that change reflects evolving communicative priorities rather than linguistic deterioration. The key takeaway here is that Aitchison is excellent for evaluation. Use her theory to challenge assumptions that older or newer language is better or worse. Finally, we look at David Crystal. Crystal emphasises the role of technology in language change, particularly the impact of the printing press on standardisation. Importantly, he stresses that standardisation is a gradual process. In the model paragraph, orthographic variation, such as draws in text A, is linked to ongoing standardisation. Text C shows competing spellings during the 17th century, illustrating that norms were still unstable. Although William Caxton introduced the printing press to England in 1476, uniform spelling did not emerge immediately. As printing expanded and dictionaries later formalised conventions, variation gradually decreased. This demonstrates how technological change facilitated orthographic standardisation over time. The key takeaway here is that Crystal works best for spelling, graphology, and corpus evidence, especially where change is slow and incremental. Before we finish, it's important to address common Paper 3 mistakes. One of the most common errors is naming theories without explaining them. Examiners reward understanding, not recognition. Another frequent issue is failing to include clear textual evidence. Vague references to older language are not enough. Students also lose marks by describing features instead of explaining why they changed. Finally, judging older language as incorrect or inferior directly contradicts linguistic theory and limits analytical depth. To succeed in Paper 3, you must always combine theory, textual evidence, and reason for change. Before we finish, I would like to add one short but very important extension, because this is what consistently separates mid-band answers from top-band answers in Paper 3. To succeed in Paper 3, you must always combine three things. First, theory, to explain why language changes. Second, textual evidence, to show how that change appears in the text. And third, a reason for change, whether that reason is historical, social, or technological. No theory without evidence, no evidence without explanation, and no explanation without context. If any one of these is missing, your analysis will be limited. Now let's talk about how to read the text efficiently, because this is where many students lose time and marks. When you first read the text, you should not be analysing everything in detail. Instead, you should be doing a quick scan, looking for clear signs of language change. As you read, ask yourself a few focused questions. What looks different on the page? That points you towards graphology. Are spellings fixed, or do they vary? That takes you to orthography. Are sentence structures longer, more complex, or organised differently from modern English? That's grammar and syntax. Do words look familiar but carry different meanings from today? That's lexis and semantics. And finally, what does the language reveal about politeness, power, or social relationships? That's pragmatics. You do not need to analyse all of these areas. In fact, trying to do so often weakens your response. Strong answers usually focus on 3 to 5 well-chosen areas, analysed in depth. This brings us to how examiners actually assess your writing. Mid-band answers usually do 3 things. They identify language features, they mention a theory, and they describe what is happening in the text. Top band answers do something different. They analyse how language has changed over time. They link features to clear reasons for that change. And they integrate theory naturally, using it to explain the evidence rather than simply naming it. What examiners consistently reward are clear links between language change and historical context, social change, or technological development. They want to see that you understand language change as a response to the world around it, not as a list of isolated features. To help you make good decisions under exam pressure, use this simple safety check before writing about any feature. Ask yourself, can I quote it? Can I explain how it has changed over time? And can I link that change to a clear cause? If the answer to any of those questions is no, then that feature is not helping you and you should skip it. Remember, paper 3 is not about how much you can spot. It is about how clearly you can explain change, cause, and context. If this video helped clarify how to approach paper 3, how to apply theories, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone else preparing for this exam. And let me know in the comments which part of the English language studies is the most challenging to you. I'll use that to plan the next video, and I'll see you there.